Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Facebook Live session. Today we have a special conversation with African-American law enforcement here today. We expecting a lively discussion, so we're going to jump right into it in a second. I just want people to introduce themselves before we start, so everybody know who you are and where you're from before we begin. So it'd be great if we could start off. We want to start off with Dalton Price first.
Absolutely.
And then
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. My name is Dalton Price. Presently, I am the president of the State County Bond Shields. I retired from Patterson Police Department. I was the assistant unit commander for internal affairs when I left. I also served as assistant unit commander for internal affairs. I was there for 25 years until I retired. I spent time on the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office Gang Unit, State Police Gang Unit, and led the Gang Intel Unit during that time. And I left at the right time, obviously. But I'm glad to be here, part of this conversation, to lend any advice or assistance that I can. Thank you.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. Let's talk about Idell. You want to go for it?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for having this conversation and for inviting me. My name is Idell Robinson, and I am the president of the Newark Bronze Shields. I've served as a trustee and also as a vice president. I've been with the Newark Police Department for 22 years. 6.5 of those years were spent at a civilian capacity as a police aide. So I was born and raised in the city of Newark, graduated elementary, middle school, and high school. So I'm just a product of Newark that shows that, hey, this is what you can achieve. I've also spent 8 years in the Marine Corps. So I have a pretty good understanding of the paramilitary organization and the structure, and just being committed to the people that I'm not only just come from, that I serve. So, and I thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Yep, glad to have you. Doris Owens.
Hello, everybody. I'm Doris Owens. I am born and raised in Newark, New Jersey. I attended Technology High School in Newark. I went on to achieve my bachelor's degree at Delaware State University. I'm currently in school to get my master's at Fairleigh Dickinson University. I have been on a job for about 5 years now. I was a walking post for 1 year community-wide in the city of Newark, and I'm currently in a 3rd precinct, which is the East District in Newark, as a patrol officer.
Great. Rochelle Blau, you want to?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rochelle Bilal. I'm currently the sheriff for the city and county of Philadelphia. I'm the first woman and African-American woman elected to be sheriff in 181 years here in this city.
Nice.
27 years in the Philadelphia Police Department, public safety director in Cowan, president of the Guardian Civic League since 2004 up to March of 2020. Secretary of the Philadelphia branch of the NAACP from 2004 to 2020. And I've been an advocate for fair treatment of people who look like me since I walked into the police department here in Philadelphia, which was one of my reasons as joining the Guardian Civic League. The Guardian Civic League is an African-American civic organization that consists of law enforcement, active and retired in the city of Philadelphia. So it had members of the police department, all the schools around that had police officers. Any law enforcement agency in the city became members of the Guardian Civic League. Right now, we're the biggest civic organization in the country. And we also members of the national organization with the National Association of Law Enforcement Officers. And I am really happy to be here with my sisters and brothers across the bridge, Newark, New Jersey. I hang out with y'all guys a lot. Thank you for having me.
Levi.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mayor, for putting this panel together. My name is Levi Holmes, retired lieutenant from the Newark Police Department. I more than happily served 25 years, reaching, like I said, the position of lieutenant. For 10 years, from 2000 to 2010, I proudly served as the president of the Newark Bronze Shields, which is the premier African-American police organization in the city of Newark in the state of New Jersey. Well, we were founded to fight racism within the police department as well as the country overall. I can proudly say that we did that fight, we fought that fight, and we continue to do so. I'm the Director of Safety and Security for the Newark Board of Education, where I'm tasked with the responsibility of maintaining the safety for all of the babies of the city of Newark under the direction of Roger Leone, and I'm happy to continue to serve the city.
Our chief here, Chief Darnell Henry.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I am Chief Darnell Henry of the Newark Police Division. I want to thank Mayor Baraka for hosting this live conversation with Black law enforcement and for his leadership during COVID-19 and protesting. Also to the forum for the work you do day in and day out. As a Newark native, I became a Newark police officer in 1994. I've been with the Newark Police Division for 26 years, appointed Chief of Police in 2016. As Chief of Police, I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations of the police division. Since 2016, we dedicated our efforts, which was made to increase diversity. So the police division is a representative of the community we serve. We are currently 30% African-American, 43% Latino, and 20% white or other. Fostering strong and productive community relationships, increasing officers' accountability and transparency. And pretty much I'm the first vice president of the Chief Association of Essex County. Since 2016, I went back to school. I received my bachelor's degree, continued, I received my master's degree. I just finished the FBI Academy. I also graduated from Boston College, Boston University, senior management from SIMPS. And I also went to Rutgers and graduated with my CPM management. And I'm glad to be here with everyone.
Thank you, thank you. Is there a statistic you have on how many women there are in the department? Do we know that?
No, I don't know that right offhand, but
Okay.
since we have you have hired a lot of females on this job. We just graduated a class, I believe it was 52, and I believe 47 of those was females.
Right. I would like to get that number because in all these incidents, I don't really see a high percentage of it being women who are shooting people running. So I'm trying to figure out it have something to do with gender. But
yeah, I'll get that.
Discussion. Yeah.
I'll get that during the discussion.
Yeah. So I just want to jump right into it, man. George Floyd situation really set off all of this stuff that's happening around this country. I call it like the Emmett Till situation. He's not the first person that was killed, but it has definitely had a different impact than all these other killings that have been taking place. But before we even jump into that, I just want you to just be honest and tell me, how does it feel to be an African-American police officer right now in the middle of all of this?
If I may, Mayor, it's very uncomfortable, even being retired, because for the time that you're on the job, for 25 years, you're never Black enough and you're never blue enough. So that becomes an issue. So we have these organizations that we have now because there's things I need to talk about. I can only talk to Levi and Idell about them. I can't talk to them because everybody's not going to understand where you stand. So you have to have your family intact. You have to have your own circle of people to understand this is how I feel. And we don't always agree with the public. We don't always agree with the police, but everyone's looking for us and expect us to stand with them instead of realizing we have our own opinion and we have our own view of the situation. And we haven't forgot that we're Black in any one of these situations. It could have been me. So we're fair about that, but it's a lot different now because you see both sides of the coin and you get to realize that some people are revealing themselves to you that you didn't see before. That's one good thing about social media. You see people who are on your team and you counted on, but now you get to see their views, and they're dumb enough to put them on Facebook. So it's very different for us now.
Wow.
Yeah, another thing that's difficult is knowing people like ourselves who have fought the fight for justice for our people throughout our entire career, and then seeing the frustration directed toward many of us who were the ones fighting for justice for our people is difficult to swallow. I mean, I know I'm retired now, but I'm imagining myself there on the front lines right now and trying to, while understanding their rage and why they have the rage that they have, but still having to channel that and focus to the point where I have to keep myself safe, but try to keep them safe and protect them while they're coming towards the police with the anti-police sentiments. So it's kind of difficult.
I think it's really tough during this time, because when you look at it, sometimes Black people have a way of processing things differently. So our thought process gives us that thought that no, it could have been this way from the beginning. We don't necessarily see or view things the same way as other people do. But in the same token, you're sitting in the car for 8, 12 hours with that person who may not look like you, share your same views, but that same person you have to rely on to come to your backup, come to your aid. But at the same token, you have to have that moral compass, knowing of where you come from and why people feel the way they do in this climate that we are in. I think that's, so it's a reasonable understanding that if you're in law enforcement and if you're Black, you do feel the pressures that come upon you. You take everybody that's here. I'm sure everybody that's here in law enforcement have been committed to their community, doing things in their community to uplift their community on every level. But then when I put on that uniform, some people don't recognize who I am. So they only recognize the uniform. So that becomes a big conflict. So we got to look past that and still, have that commitment to the people that we serve.
My view is probably a little bit more different than everybody's. I think that if you are legitimately out there working in the community and they know that you are a police officer and they know that you are one that speak out against any racist or any aggravated circumstances that come on Black people in their community, then they don't tend to come at you like they come at everybody else, even if you are in that uniform. So what I say to people, that if you're going to be out there in the community, be out there, that you can't be covert, you can't be hiding. Well, from my counterparts, let them know that here, this is the deal. What you're not going to do is do that in front of me. What you're not going to do is disharm and disrespect people of color while I'm standing there. You're not going to do that. And then thinking that they're not going to back me up, well, that's what you're part of the organization's for. Because if you need backup, you can always call your members and say, I don't get backup today, then they're going to have to back you up. Because in the Guardian Civic League, from the founding members, when the white cops wouldn't back them up, the members, when they got off of work, they walked the beat with Alfonso Dale. So my thing in this here is, you really have to be out there. I know a lot of y'all do, but there are people that are amongst us that are hidden, that are covert. Well, I'm gonna do this on the side, but I ain't gonna say anything. It's up to us. A lot of our departments sued, at least in Philadelphia, sued the city so that people that look like me can be hired in this institution. And there's a reason why. It's because they need to show the makeup of the city. And so therefore, there was an expectation from those who are Black and brown that you are going to be fair and just in our communities. You're not going to just jump in and do the same thing the good old boys do. And when they see us do the same thing as the good old boys do, then they throw us all into the same boat. So when they see us saying different, like right out there with them, stop, you're not going to do that, not while I'm standing here. And then those boys will tend to act differently. So I'm like, if you are shown out there in the community, whether you in uniform or not, people tend to not come at you as much as they come at the other ones who don't do anything, who jump into there and become go along to get along police people.
Right.
All right, so I feel like a lot of our own people, they don't comply sometimes with the authority that we have as a Black officer, giving them direction. But sometimes you have to step outside of the vehicle and maybe interact with these people, because it can be a comment made, but once you interact with them, you know, and I'm a Newark female from New Community, and once I say that, sometimes depending on what area I'm in, I get a lot of respect. The whole, everybody's whole image, it changes, because now they feel like I'm a relatable cop. Oh, okay, hey sis, how you doing? Oh no, sis, I didn't mean it that way. So then everything changes. But sometimes it'll take for me to tell my partner, oh no, I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna address it. It doesn't have to be as an argumentative standpoint, but it can be an informative standpoint to know, listen, I understand what you're coming from. I understand how you feel, how your kids may feel, but at the end of the day, I have a job to do. But it's also my job to make us look good because I'm in that environment.
I believe,
That gives the argument, that gives the argument that you need to hire from the community.
That's right.
So,
Absolutely, because sometimes depending on which environment you're in, you have people that can be a lot more relatable.
definitely.
well, I believe this, I agree with everyone's views. And just for myself, growing up in the city as an African American and going through the mid '80s all the way to the the '90s and seeing the change and being a victim within the city. I believe that being from the city and being policing within your community, you're going to treat people with respect automatically. That's going to come with no hesitation. And as far as viewing other folks on the job, other officers on the job, doing wrong to the people of the community, you just got to stand up. You definitely have to intervene and let them know that you're not tolerating it from the door. And then they'll be mindful before they either mistreat someone of the community or disrespect folks in the community. So I believe just standing up for what you believe in and holding your ground and knowing that you have a support system like the Bronx Shields, if you need to speak to with regarding the issues with as far as policing, you can do that.
All right, I threw y'all a nice little softball. I'm gonna hit y'all with some real questions now. So I just want you to be ready. Just this George Floyd, just quickly, 8 minutes 46 seconds. Do you think that what happened was lawful?
No,
No.
Absolutely no.
no. Look,
Absolutely
I
not.
can't cuss on here now, can I?
Absolutely.
I'm about to say H no.
F no. So look, once you look, we all know that being an officer, being in police, it's a difficult job. You're responsible for making life-altering decisions, and I think that's what some people don't understand, that you have that power to affect someone's life from now on to their future. Once those handcuffs was on him, that is completely, utterly, they murdered him. Period. That you can't get around it. So there's no, saying, oh, well, and then what kills me is people want to bring up, oh, he had a criminal record. What, you didn't know he had a criminal record, and his criminal record shouldn't have affected how you treated him inhumanely. You had it, that's a long time. 8 minutes and 46 seconds is a very long time. So no, I don't believe anybody on this panel discussion would even approve of that. And it's totally, wrong.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Absolutely, Idel, you're absolutely correct. Once you get compliance from whether it's a suspect and they're handcuffed, the force is over. You don't need to use any more excessive force. And the mere fact that those other officers stood by while George Floyd was pleading for help is it's unhumane what they did. They pretty much have complicity in this guy George Floyd's death as well. You can't be handcuffed, gasping for air, while the officers are just sitting there watching. That was so, for
So
me,
the other officers should have jumped in. They should have intervened.
absolutely, absolutely, they should have intervened, because you got to remember, we took an oath to protect life and, life and property and a third party. So to me, Floyd was considered, to me, a third party. He was handcuffed. He wasn't a threat for whatever he did. He wasn't a threat anymore. He was handcuffed on the ground. And the guy had his knee in his neck. And what was more, to me, was more disturbing was that not only he had his knee in his neck, he had his hand in his pocket. Like, he was used to this.
To me, it showed he had all of his weight on his neck. Because if you look at the footage, you'll see slightly one of his feet is off the ground. So if your foot is off the ground, that means all of your weight is distributed to his neck.
Right.
And Mayor, I just want to add this before I finish. And also, there's a due process, right, within pretty much every organization, right? So with all the facts that they had that day, I know they fired those officers. However, they had enough probable cause that same day they fired them, they should have arrested them all, based on the technologies they had, the videos. It was clearly anyone viewing that through their lens that he was murdered.
In this situation, the knee on George Floyd's neck for that long period of time is bigger than what they did. So to the family, as a person in law enforcement, I want to say, I apologize for them killing your loved one. But it's so much bigger than just the knee right there. It's the knee on Black people's neck for decades. This is bigger. They cut off his airway. They've been cutting off Black people airways, and they're able to do things in their life. They've been cutting off their economics. They've been cutting off their education. They've been cutting off a lot. So this nationwide has brought about the rise that happened in the 60s. Until they saw people being hosed down and beaten up publicly is when we got some movement. This is the second part of this. Everybody saw the knee on the neck. They have been cutting off airways of people of color for a long time. No, it's so much wrong in that. Mm-hmm. So much wrong. And the fact that that officer and them in Minneapolis Police Department felt comfortable in doing that. I am so enraged by this, but it brings about what we as organizations have been speaking of for decades.
Right.
For decades. We had to sue to get on this department. We're speaking about police brutality. We're speaking about disparity in treatment in our own institutions. The fact that we got to sue to become a part of this. The fact that we want to see the change. But what we don't want is people to get to the point where they tell their children they don't want to do this. We need them here because they got to be the change they want to see.
Levi, you want to jump on that? Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say about the George Floyd incident is I wish I was there.
We all say that.
I wish I was there.
Exactly.
But so many people wish they were there also, because if we, Mr. Floyd would be alive today. Like we jump into situations which are far less threatening than that. And trust me, we all have histories of standing up in situations where people go too far, and we take that responsibility head on and we step in. It bothered me. It took me up until maybe 2 days ago to even watch the entire video, because I just feel hurt that or bothered that I wasn't there, or someone like me wasn't there to take an action, to stand up and do the right thing and say the right thing, regardless of what color that officer was. It's right. It's all about being right. It's the humane thing to do, regardless of your ethnicity, but especially if you're African American, because you know the history that we have with the law enforcement from day one, from the time that Africans arrived on these shores. We know the history. So because we know the history, we have to stand up and we have to take actions and never, ever hesitate.
So just, we know what happened in Atlanta, right? Kind of DUI situation. Guy, they struggling on the ground, get the taser. He runs away, gets shot in the back 3 times. I watched that video today twice. I watched another video of a similar situation with a white guy who was tased, and he basically ran and chased the cop. And the cop ran from him. He chased him around. Tased, I think he tased him again. Pulled out his gun, allowed the guy to get in his car. He got in his car, drove erratically, rammed the cop's police car, rammed his car with his own car, rammed it, bam, rammed the car. He called for backup, all these people came. He basically, let the guy drive off, and, the other police, I'm sure they caught him later. They had a helicopter, a bunch of cars chasing him. Those are 2 different incidents. One is exponentially worse than the first one. This guy gets away with his life, right? He rams a police car, chases a cop, everything, like ran after him, literally. This other guy ran away from the cop and loses his life. Why do you think that happens to Black people and that doesn't happen to white people like that?
If I can.
You go, because I need a drink of water.
The issue comes down to the man you're dealing with at the time. And even though we all wear the same uniform, we don't have the same heart. And you have people coming on this job that don't have the heart to deal with people face to face, whether it's verbally or deal with people physically. You can go to the academy for 6 months, but I know for a fact that you cannot get out of a man what God didn't put in. So if he don't have the heart for this job, his first opportunity to shoot someone, that's the way he's going to handle it. So you have these people that aren't built for this job. You have people that aren't used to dealing with people that look like me. All they've seen is what people look like me have done on television, and that's their attitude. So the first time there's a confrontation with this type of person, I need to pull my gun and shoot him, because that's the only option I have, because I don't bring the other skills to the table. And I learned this through internal affairs. We have some tough guys that are police officers that have various skills when it comes to fighting. Those officers have less IA complaints for excessive force than anyone else, because they bring a certain amount of confidence to the table where they don't have to prove how tough they are, and they don't have to shoot anybody. And this is becoming an issue. If you don't have the tools readily available for you, the first thing you need to do is shoot someone, and you don't have the heart to do anything differently. And that's where these problems are coming in. You're dealing with people that should not be on the job to start with, and the cities are going to be held responsible, because 2 things we have to do. We have to be careful of negligent hiring and negligent retention. You're hiring the wrong people, and you're keeping people when they should have been fired a long time ago. And those are going to become issues, and those are the people who are causing problems.
Right.
Yeah,
So I feel like this incident, it all comes back to who you have working within your community. So when I came on a job, it was still, you had to live in Newark for a certain amount of years. Okay, I've been on the job for a few years, and they opened it up countywide because they didn't have enough officers within the city to qualify to become an officer. So now you're taking somebody from, say, Little Falls, New Jersey, and you're bringing them to Clinton Ave and Bergen Street. Their reaction to what's going on and the people that they are now within is going to be a lot different, because I'm not used to this person, this Black male, this talking back to me and not respecting my commands or what I tell him. So you're afraid, because you're afraid of our kind, because you're not from here and you don't understand how we need to be talked to, or you're not on our level about how you can communicate with us. So your first thing to do is go for your weapon because you feel attacked. Within, if he was a cop in Little Falls and he's dealing with somebody like that, now you're less afraid because he looks like you or she looks like you.
But they talked to this guy for a good 10 minutes before anything happened. He was pretty docile, drunk, but docile for a good 10 minutes. I don't understand how it escalated to his murder. And then you got the other guy who was absolutely aggressive to the point where he rammed the police car, right? So I'm just trying to figure out the difference here.
well,
Because
Mayor,
he was white, because he was white, because he was white, because he was white. How? What else do you need to say here? because the statistics show that white males are mass murderers in our country. They get taken to Burger King. They go eat a burger after you done killed 9 people in the church. It's because they were white. Anybody, the white cop shooting the black guy running away from him 5 times in the back and try to set it up and say he grabbed his taser because he was white. Because they have a fear of people that look like us, because they think less of us, because in their mindset that that black people are so violent when history tells you they're the violent ones, because we ain't never go get people and bring them over in ships and kill them and slaughter them. We ain't do none of that. It's because of the mind that they think it. And plus in the police department, you say they don't have tools. Everybody is trained the same way. In the Philadelphia Police Department, we are taught the vital parts of the body, where to hit, where to go, and all of that. And so if the only thing we could think of is the quick draw draw and shoot somebody, then their training that they were getting in the police academy must be inadequate. Because if you don't know where to hit somebody in order to bring them down, because that was a part of your training, that's the less force as necessary. Don't forget the continuum says as much force necessary to affect the rest. And if you think the first thing you can do is pull out your gun and shoot them, and the fact that they have been getting away with it for decades allowed them to think that that's what they can do and keep doing it, that's some craziness. You scared of black people, and if you are, you need to find something else to do. So we're here to stay.
Jeez. Go ahead. I hear you. Want to jump in? Jump in. Go ahead, Levi.
So, and one thing that I realized too is that society knows that if you kill a black man, you can get away with it.
See, that's
right?
it.
You can, it's acceptable because the perception is we are, like Rochelle said, we're violent, we're bad, we're up to no good anyway. So when it comes to killing a black man, society is going to give you a pass, right? But now if you kill a white man, I don't care who it is, when you're killing another race of people, society treats you different. You're going to be viewed differently, and that is going to be a person that you killed and not just any old black person that you killed. It's going to be a human. And it's going to be treated differently. And that's why I don't care what you say, but in my 25 years, I don't want to be too honest, Mr. Mayor, but in 25 years, you'll see different people are treated differently, right? And it's not, I don't think it's based on hate. I don't think it's based on hate, but I think it's based on the fact that you can get away with treating people certain ways and you cannot.
Well, if that's the case, you're saying some people are looked at as less than human.
Well, Mayor, historically, African Americans have always been looked and viewed upon as less human, not qualified enough. So there was always a negative stigma associated with us for history. This is going way back, and you know, as an activist, this is going back many years already. So with that, coupled with the fact that fear plays a major role in this also, right? So, you know, we went to Washington, and you're aware of that, and there was a study done with I forget her name, but Dr. Was it Marsh? Dr. Marsh?
Yes.
Right, and it was a simulator. We actually got on a simulator which measures your fear. Right, and that's something that, you know, we still looking into bringing it to Newark. So, you know, we can use every bit of technology so we can police different, right? So we can always be better.
Right. Fear is learned though too, you know.
Yeah, fear is taught in the house, in the kitchen table.
That's right.
That's taught the kitchen table.
Yeah, it's taught fear, and you know what you're afraid of has a lot to do with the way society organizes what you should be afraid of and what you should protect yourself from. So that's real. So I want to jump into these protests that are happening all over the country, and you see this, you see all the way the police are responding, and it's putting a real negative light, if I should say, on law enforcement around the country. The way these police departments are in fact responding to protests in the city. We saw in Buffalo what happened to the older white guy who was thrown on the ground, the young lady who was pushed in New York City, cars ramming into groups of protesters, people hitting people with battering rams. I mean, with the cages. All of those things are creating this kind of atmosphere of the way it's turning the way people look at police around, right? So, what do you think is there an appropriate way to respond to people who are protesting? Is there an appropriate way to respond? Or do you think that that's the way that people should be responding? Police should be responding that way?
Well,
I don't believe that you can just say what my response is going to be. What you have to think about is what's going to be the reaction to my response? How should we respond? What decision should we make as a team and make the decision that's going to save your city and save your police department? For chiefs that are going out and deciding we're going to kneel with the community to show that we stand in solidarity this time with this incident, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that, because you're there to show the community we support you. We stand behind you for what is right. And that's what we're here for. So the protests, people have a right to protest. Running a car into someone is not justified, especially in those circumstances. So there's a way to treat people, period. And you wouldn't do it under any other circumstance. And what did these people do to justify this kind of response? So the police departments have to rethink the way they do things. And they should have been rethinking it a while ago, but it comes down to how is this going to be viewed? Is this the right thing to do? And you'll learn that ethical policing is contagious. And as one of the chiefs from New Orleans said, ethical policing is courageous. So you have to be ethical in your response. How does it look? Is it right? And is the proper way to treat the people that I serve?
And just to add to that, and like what we're doing in Newark, you know, every city has their own recipe, right? So you can't put people in these type of extreme situations that are going to be just like pulling over somebody else on the street or for motor vehicle violation, and then eventually shooting them in the back for something that's so simple and minute and little as that, or someone running away from them and they shooting them in the back, or in Floyd's situation. So you got to be mindful as a leader, not to put these individuals on the front line when you have something like protests going on around the nation as we see them on TV. So you got to be mindful, and you have to teach them de-escalation. De-escalation is very important. It's very important in these stressful situations. And you know, you can put a force in front of people, and right now what we're seeing is that it kind of excites them, right? So what we're doing in Newark is totally different from what everybody else is doing, and we believe that individuals that if they're aggressive already, they're not being on our front line. They're not going to be on the front line in these situations, let alone they're not going to be in the police department. So
how you deal with protesters? I mean, I guess people are looking to Newark as a national model as to how, you know, we were successful in mitigating a lot of potential things that could have escalated. So, and that's one of the reasons why we as organizations, we interject ourselves into the community so we can, you know, be a part of some of those solutions. And before we go any further, you have to commend the community, especially in Newark. They stood up and they held the line. They stood in between cops and those who look opportunists who looked to do other things. So we have to commend them. And just like the mayor just mentioned, maybe just like about 2 weeks ago, you got to commend those who wear those uniforms because they show great restraint, and, you know what I'm saying, and exercising what they knew they had the right to do under law, but they held restraint. So that's what it takes. And sometimes you can't be in your feelings. The First Amendment gives us the right to peacefully protest. So if you can't respect that, and then I tell another person, it doesn't matter whether we protest peacefully. Martin Luther King was killed. He did it peacefully. Malcolm X, peacefully. So many others who, like the March on Selma, was peaceful until they started throwing tear gas and, you know, the billy clubs and everything else. It's how you deal with people. That's what's going to affect. And tell people to get out of your emotions and get out of your feelings and deal with people with humanity. And you'll see more better results.
I'm in agreement with not putting the hotheads that you know in your department, not on the front line. because the first thing they're gonna do is pull out that billy club like y'all saw here in Philadelphia. Those people should not have been there because you have other people that show restraint. De-escalation is very important for every law enforcement person to be trained. Most big cities have different little sectors, they a special unit. When every police person in your city needs to be trained. They also need to start utilizing the civic organizations that have people working in their community. Start utilizing them because they got a connection with the people in the community. Now, this went out of control here because you had a whole lot of outsiders in the community. But there were some incidents where the community saved some of the stores.
Sure.
Right on 52nd Street, one of the white guys took a crowbar to some metal of a store and the brother stopped him. They say, he'd been a part of our community for a long time. And when he didn't hear that, the other brothers came and said, he's been a part of our community a long time. So they stopped him. So the police department need to look out of the box and stop being so hell-bent on just thinking that they can resolve it on their own. You have a whole lot of communities that work with the police and communities work together with the police really good. And so you can start utilizing them when it comes to uprising, the people that they trust. But instead, they just don't utilize none of them.
Right.
Therefore, those that they trust are not in the forefront. In order for people to get rid of gangs in this city, the OGs was the ones that broke that up. So I'm like, well, where y'all at with the killers in these cities? Use the OGs. They the ones that went in and had the confidence of those that are doing it to break it up. So you got to think out of the box and stop thinking so individually, like we the cops and we the only ones can do it. Bring some of the community organizations that you work with, the ones that the community trusts to help diffuse some of these situations.
That brings me, go ahead. You want to say something? That brings me to another question, but go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, I want to add too to that. What made us so successful in Newark is one, and Mayor, you got out in front of this with the protesting from day one, and also we have a strong clergy alliance in our city who also got out. We have a street team that's very active in the city of Newark. They were out there as well as the community was extremely important to the success that we had. And and like it was mentioned prior, I believe by Idel, the restraint that our officers used was paramount, and being able to leave a protest and our city is still here. It's still intact.
Well, Newark has have an emotional relationship to the city, man. We know what happened in '67. We have, and those who don't, we just have an emotional relationship in the sense that, we may fight with one another, but nobody from outside is gonna come in here and do anything.
There you go.
Anybody or any place in the city. That's really the bottom line, because some of the people we fight, we battle in the streets in the city of Newark, but nobody from outside is gonna come here and destroy property or do different things like that. People in the city are not gonna really tolerate that, and that's really what at the bottom line what happened. Go ahead, brother.
Mr. Mayor, to piggyback on what you're saying, exactly. What happened in Patterson was the community policing division, and because they have a relationship with the community, a deep relationship, they got together with people from the community, in particular, a group called Men Stand Up. And these are a bunch of young men. When I say young and middle age, Black men from the community. They have their own organization. They're supported by the police department. And these young men went to the protests and they identified people who weren't from our community and didn't look like us. And they introduced themselves to them. This is who we are. This is our city. Who are you? Very nicely. And just so you know, nobody's going to tear up our city. Nobody's going to rip up our city. And they made sure they did that around the protests. And those are the things that saved our community, because community policing was directly involved with who was going to protest, who was going to show up. We're here to support you. And you explained it in the beginning. But when you have men from the community that show up to these things and say, listen, we support the police, we support the protests, but you are not going to tear up our city. And once the bad guy knows that you know who he is, things are done differently. So it's very important that, again, we establish these things early. And the people on this panel have done this. We were in the community in between the last two incidences. We've been in the community. We didn't just show up when something happened and raised our hand and said, hey, we're here. But if you're not making those emotional deposits through community policing in the community before something happens, it's too late once the protest starts. But you got to be there early on.
So what should happen to the police departments across the country? How do we reform it? How do you stop this stuff from happening? In the middle of all these protests and burnings and looting and everything that's going on, somebody got shot still in the middle of that, right? So how do you stop all this stuff from happening in your mind? Some people say defund, use police dollars to go other places. Some people even talking about abolishing the police department. I mean, they're running around to CNN talking about Camden being the model for I mean, it's getting so bad. Is that Camden is the model for how to reform a police department. And what they don't understand is that they got rid of the local police and they brought the county police in, and now they really don't look like the people in the city of Camden. But I just want to hear how do you stop this?
I think when you think about it, I think sometimes people from the outside, they look at our organization, or people that don't look like us look at our organization, they think, oh well, they're standing for this, so they're against that. So no one on this panel is in agreement with looting, rioting, targeting officers, or any of that. You just got to help. I think one of the biggest things of how we achieve that is through training and accountability. We have to learn as officers to hold ourselves accountable and hold those who we work with accountable. That means breaking down that thin blue line that they want to call it. It helps progress. And that's what we need right now, is progress. We can't use, because everybody's going to continue to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. You can talk till you're blue in the face, but unless you start holding that person that you know has tendencies for rage or they feel a certain type of way, unless you pull them to the side and be like, not on my watch.
Mm-hmm.
You won't do it on my watch. So, and we have to, and you have to make officers feel comfortable within respective police departments that they're not going to be targeted later. So those are key elements into, you know what I'm saying, either.
So do you feel like people on this thing gonna be targeted? Y'all think y'all gonna be targeted when y'all get off this thing?
Well, I mean, Idel's speaking and I'm his chief, so I think he's gonna be okay. He's definitely gonna be okay.
Like in general, do you think cops will be targeted for these comments you guys are making?
I don't think we'll be targeted for these comments that's being made and expressed today.
Around the country, anywhere.
Around the country.
I think we've already been targeted in the past, and we done stood up against that mess. They know that we are trained just like them. You can't come up against us because we are not scared of you. So if we speak our minds about what's going on, that's it. So you can say your little nasty comments. Don't nobody care about that. The only thing we care about is if you step up on our doorstep. And don't forget, we are trained just like you. We ain't scared of you. So we speak our mind and we're going to make the suggestion we need to make. And we're not worried about what they're going to say or do in reference to us. Please, those days are over.
It goes back to the mere premises of why this organization, the North Bronx Shields, was even started. Could you imagine back in 1959 when those men went in the basement and they said, you know what, no more. And then what happened is they become collective, they became stronger. And so they didn't care about what shift they was put on or this, that, and the other. What they did, what they fought, what they knew was morally right. Not just right legally, but just morally right. I mean, at some point, you're going to have a moral compass into what you do, especially in law enforcement and communities of color. I'm from this community. I'm from North. I went to Belmont Runyon, not when it was the new Belmont Runyon, but the old Belmont Runyon when it was about 78. I went to 15th Avenue, Carver, graduated from Weequahic. So I am from the community, and that is a big part of a successful police department.
Imagine them back.
I want to
go ahead.
Is we are in a different situation because there's a decent number of us. But I speak to a lot of police officers across the state, across the country. When I talk about a numerical minority, you're talking about there's only 1 or 2 African Americans in the entire department. So those are the ones who will feel the wrath of these conversations. Those are the ones and officers will come to them face to face and challenge them and question them and say, hey, that guy Levi Holmes was on the mayor's panel. Do you believe that? Do you support that in a very aggressive manner? We're working to this day, Mr. Mayor. we're working with other municipalities to develop organizations because they are being targeted before this broke out. And they're coming to us saying, could you help us? Could you protect us, Bronze Shields? Could you show us how to defend ourselves within the police department because we're being targeted? So imagine if they get on this panel, Mr. Mayor, they would lose their jobs. They would not get back up, like we said earlier, and they would suffer all kinds of hardship if they spoke up. We're blessed.
That's why it's very important that the national organizations go to these little cities and recruit them to be members. Could you imagine? 1956, the Guardian Civic League was formed. Same reason as to how they were being treated when they decided to be law enforcement people. And so the ones that have one or two, we need to, because you remember, we had a march in Philadelphia against City Hall, against the police department. And because some of my members was afraid here, I had to call in y'all from outside. Put y'all in some Guardian shirts, City Hall. We know how to do this game. So those that are feeling that bunch need to become members of national. So when they stand up, they can say, we are members of a national organization. Do we need to call them in? Do.
And Mayor, to your,
be ready to go.
and the response to your second question was defunding the police department was that we respond to we respond and handle situations where social services can take the brunt of some of the things that we respond to. For example, maybe like a mental, we respond to that. We respond to sick and injured. So if they can allocate money for that, I mean, fine. But we still need to keep funding the police department to reduce the amount of victims, to deal with robberies, homicides. So that part we still need to make sure that we have money for.
Right. So you saying that you agree that money from the police department should be used for social services and other kinds of things like that to help with reduction of some of the issues we have in the city. Are you guys saying that? I'm gonna go down the list of different things. I want to have some reforms. I want you to agree or disagree.
I'm thinking that they need to fund the services that they have not been funded. Because in past history, this is what they do. As soon as the city get in the brunt for money, guess who they cut? Us. They cut education. They cut medical assistance. They cut food delivery. They cut everything that cuts us. So if you have to use some of that money that's in policing, that's overly policing some of our communities, to fund those programs so that the police don't have to respond to most of them all the time, I'm in agreement with that.
Okay.
And cutting us for so long, that's where the problem comes in at. We the first ones to get cut, just like we the last hired, first fired. Let's stop that. Give them funds to those that need those services.
Defunding is, a little bit above my pay grade. So I'll leave that up to, the chiefs and the directors and things like that. But what I will say is, because I think people get and they fear when they hear that word defunding. So when they hear that word defunding, that means they're going to take away money. That means, layoffs, or this, that, and the other. Now, if we want to reallocate some money, we can reallocate some money with a purpose of saying, hey, like you talked about before, bringing back POW. So getting those young folks, 7th grade, 8th grade, and getting them into the mindset of wanting to be, public servants in their respective communities, or firefighters in their respective communities. Because the racism just doesn't stop in the police department. It perpetrates itself over to the fire department. And trust me, I just seen a text or something like that came out recently in regards to something. And yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, so we have to, if we can get those programs back up and running, especially in the urban community, I think we have a better success rate, because what you do is you interject all those other organizations, mix them into PAL and say, hey, donate some of your time and, talk to kids or things like that. That's going to help, build a stronger relationship. But just outright defunding, I wouldn't,
I would say that when it comes to, when you start talking about defunding, and you got to look at what is the police department putting into the community already. Let's measure that. Let's see what we're doing. Because in police work, and we know time equals money. If I give you 5 officers for a program that has nothing to do with the police department, that time equals money. So let's look at those things. And what can police departments do, which is the main question before, what can police departments do now? What about you go back, revisit your mission statement, your obligation, and your values. Look at that and ask yourself as a department, are we living up to our mission statement? Are we living up to our obligation? Are we living up to our values that we have listed on our websites? And if we're not living up to it, we need to live up to it. And we need to find ways to address our mission statement with the community, our obligation to the community. Our power comes from the community. So you need to look at those things. City of Patterson has a grant through community policing. I think it's $8.3 million. And that grant is for all community services. It goes through community policing. So when you're talking about funds going there, those funds are going there already. Can more money go? Yes. But when you're talking 1.3 million, not including the time that the officers are spending there, you probably can get close to $2 million in police money going towards that. So the police departments have to look at what are they doing and what can they do better to help better the relationship between them and the community. And it works in all of our relationships. Okay, if you're married, dating someone, whoever it is, what can I do better to help this relationship? Because the other person is saying they need more. Right. And I need to look at what am I doing?
A lot more.
And can I do better? If I can do better, do better. That's fair enough. So, I mean, defunding doesn't mean taking all the money away, and we've had that conversation, but you need to step in and say, how can I do more for my community?
Right.
I believe that, and what both of these men were saying, I know when I was growing up, we had like the DARE program. I know now that we do have school resource officers, but I feel that the children now are our next generation. So we have to put things into form so that we're saying that we want more Black officers. We need to be able to talk to them, to educate them on how. I know that when I became an officer, I had to have good credit. I had to have a good license. So we need to encourage and educate these individuals on these things so that they're aware of what they have to do before it's too late. We can't get to them once they have a juvenile record or once they've stolen a car and now they don't have a license, because these are the things that's going to stop them from being a part of their community. So even if we need to hit elementary school or middle school, we need to just try these different programs that can get their attention so that they know what list to follow, because their parents might not be able to educate them on things that they don't know of. Their teachers may not educate on things that they don't know of. So we need to be the people that speak up and actually get out into the community and do different programs. I know that we had the basketball teams before, and that might be something to take these kids outside of their comfort zone to actually talk to us so that we can hear their opinions about what they feel as though needs to be done to help them out in their community.
So can we use police money to do that?
I believe that we can use our resources, because if you're having somebody that's doing community policing within the school district, you can also maybe not come in on Monday and come in on Saturday to do this event with these children. And I'm sure that it's officers like myself that are willing to give back to our community, which is one reason why we became officers, to be able to accommodate their schedule to do these things. So sometimes it doesn't even have to be money. It can be the resources that we have or the time that you're willing to give up to be a part of the community.
I think we have a real tool that I don't think we utilize enough, and that's station house adjustments. And that goes a long way from giving a 16-year-old, 17, 18-year-old a record for 1 or 2 bags of weed, and weed is on the cusp of becoming legal as it is. So we have to use these tools.
Not to cut you off, Idel, North, we did that for the past 4 years, station house adjustments, curbside adjustments, and we've been real successful in that versus locking the juveniles up for something real minor. Even to the point where our youth house detectives, our juvenile detectives have been taking them home versus taking them to the youth house and processing them. So we've been real productive in that, and it's a great thing that we're doing in North.
So let me go down the list before we run out of time. You want to say something real quick, Levi? I got a list of yes and no's for y'all.
Okay, I just want to jump on what the chief just said. So as the Director of Safety for Newark Board of Education, that is a fact. So I'm in charge of safety. So I know for a fact that a lot of times we're doing Stacy House adjustments as opposed to arresting our juveniles in the school system. So we're 100% lock and step with the police department. That's definitely what's taking place.
So what people don't understand is that most of the cost of anything, particularly in city budgets, is personnel, right? New York's police budget is $6 billion, right? They have a $6 billion police budget. They have 30,000 or so police officers, right? So the money they're cutting from the police is $1 billion. $1 billion is our entire budget. They have 10 times more employees on their police department than we have in the entire city of Newark. So obviously they have a lot more resources and a lot more money. So the necessity for the amount of police and the overtime and all that is what the large amount of money is generally for. Police, their salaries and benefits and overtime. That's the major cost right there. So what determines how many police officers you need? If crime is going down, why do you need a bunch of police officers?
Well, crime has trends. So crime goes up, crime goes down.
Exactly.
So I think you have to keep that level of officers, and maybe they may not be needed in necessary patrol, but like Doris just said, you can reallocate them to more community service types of things. You know,
hire a social worker to do that.
Say that again.
Why don't you just hire a social worker to do that?
Because you get to interact with the community. Because when you do have situations that happen in other places and it resonate over here, you already have those people in place. This isn't a new thing that you're implementing.
Right. Why hire a social worker when I have a psychology degree and I'm a police officer?
But you're the only one.
It's like the city of Newark, we do hire social workers with the police.
It only takes one to start something. So let's start there.
You know that the Newark police budget we use to hire social workers. We done hired a couple of social workers with the police budget already before all of this.
It's for what? Every 25 cops, you hire one social worker, correct?
Yes, sir.
Something like that.
So, most people don't know that, but we've been hiring social workers. Those social workers that's in a policeman's spot is a social worker out here working somewhere.
But guess what? You could save money because I'm one that can help save those 25 social worker for 25 people.
Right.
Well,
I think that one.
just to add, Mayor, crime, as you know it, as we all know it, is not going to ever go away. If I can make it go away and disappear, I'd be rich. So we just got to remain focused and not let our foot off the gas pedal and just give up on this here situation as far as defunding the police budget, taking money out of the police budget and funding it and utilizing that money elsewhere, because crime is not going to ever go anywhere. We know that. And then you have in departments, you have people retiring, and you got to rehire. So, and plus, I think training is paramount. That money should be still there for training. Training is key, and that's why you see some of the situations that we are experiencing now in these different cities with these different officers. It's training. It's training. You need to have the proper, and it needs to continue, because you got to remember, when you take an officer off the street, you have to replace that officer. You got to put a body there for overtime.
Right.
So
we're running out of time. Let me go down these questions.
Right,
all I need is yes or no, and then we can get out of here. You know, the officers that shot the guy in Atlanta, should they be fired? Yes or no?
Yes.
I don't know enough about it yet.
Yeah, I would say it's a fluid situation.
Yeah. Okay. Yes or no, man. Yes or no.
It's a yes or no question. We ain't gonna stay in the
point,
gray area.
You can't make a speech. No speeches.
No.
I'll take I don't know, but no speeches. Yes, no, I don't know. Okay. Anybody else? Everybody got to speak now. Come on, y'all.
You got mine right. Yes.
I got one. I got three actually. I don't know, and yes.
You might say
I don't know enough. I don't know enough because I haven't watched the video. I've been busy all morning dealing with, in Newark. big city of Newark, but I don't know.
Here's a better question. If somebody's running from you, should you shoot them in the back?
No.
No,
Absolutely no.
No.
Did they have a gun in here?
that
Huh?
was the thing in Atlanta, and y'all had no, no answer for that one.
No, that happened in South Carolina.
So should police monies be diverted for social services? Some police monies be diverted for social services.
It should be considered, absolutely. Some.
I think there should be a analysis done on what actually police are responding to that social service workers can respond to. I think you have to do a comprehensive analysis on that before you start stripping the budget.
I feel before you start stripping the budget, you should look inside of your office's education to see what officers that you already have on file can help you before reaching out to give more money out. Use your own resources before you get new ones.
Okay, so I only got one yes. Anybody else?
I'm with the chief. I think you need a straight up analysis to see what's going on first before you even had a conversation.
I mean, my thing is, if you're not going to redirect them towards things that's going to be beneficial for the police department, no.
Beneficial for the police department or beneficial for the people in the community?
You know, like what I mean is like POW. Like POW. POW will be beneficial.
Yeah, what's the money? You can't direct it. So it's no for you. You can't direct where the money is going. The money has to go to help us solve issues. If we solve issues in a community, then we don't need the police to go there because those issues are not there anymore. So let me, so I know all of y'all disagree with them. Do you think the police departments need to be reformed at all?
Yes.
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 Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Do you think that all of the training that police officers are getting is enough?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
It's antiquated.
Absolutely not. It's not enough.
Do you
That's
think
why we
that
need to
they
keep
are,
that money in the budget.
do you think that there are racists and white supremacists in your department?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
It may be.
Yes.
And as soon as we find them out, as soon as we find them out, they fired.
Okay. Well, there's a couple we know of.
Yeah.
Here's a civilian complaint review board. Yes or no?
Yes.
No.
No.
Nope.
No.
You
Y'all
wait for me, right?
I'm waiting
got
for
a
you,
big
brother.
one. Yes.
I'm waiting for you.
Well, my answer is going to be this.
Here you go. You about to
Having
get a seat.
having a different set of eyes to look at investigations as far as police misconduct and police brutality would be good.
I don't understand how you guys see against all of this stuff that's going on around here, around the country, these shootings, all of this stuff, and you know these police officers are not getting what they deserve based on the things that they're doing because nobody's investigating it properly, and you still don't want a civilian complaint review board.
I said yes. Let me explain why they said no.
Now, that don't make sense.
Little departments, little police departments. See, I'm a class, 4 city. That's where, we got 6,500 police officers. For the smaller departments, they may feel apprehensive about somebody else looking in, even if it's only just a group of people that volunteer to do that. But I think there needs to be a civilian review board because cops live in a bubble. They live in a bubble. They work with each other. They go places with each other. They hang out with each other. And therefore, they are out of touch with those in the community. And the community needs to be able to say to them, yo, this type of action is not acceptable. Yes. Where y'all get at? Y'all community organizations? How you say no?
I like her.
But listen.
That don't make her right.
Yeah, exactly.
Hold on, Abraham. Hold on.
Well, it sounds right to me, brother. It sounds right.
Well, man.
I don't be
he-
opposed to all
he's
this
the
stuff
mayor.
people doing, but you don't want no oversight.
Well, no, man.
You don't want oversight, and they just running amok all over the place, and you don't want oversight.
Well, man, as in Newark, we are right now in litigations for the CCRB, and we actually been actively working with them and preparing them how to learn how to do investigations as well as
So I know that.
Attorney General guidelines. So we welcome them in Newark, right? Because I think at the end of the day, every officer took an oath, regardless of what color you are, to serve a diverse community with respect, fairness, and sensitivity. If you have those key elements, right, and instilled in you, you're not going to have a problem with whoever look at investigations. You won't have a problem. So to keep them honest, I say yes, bring them on. We welcome them.
But it's
The four stars,
There you go,
say
Chief.
yes.
it's what?
No changing, Idell.
What you say?
No changing now.
No, I'm not changing. What I'm saying is, it's if you're gonna have somebody look at what you've done, if you're gonna put something together like that, it's always good to have people that have actually walked in your shoes, that have done your job. Don't get me wrong. We all stand here. We all agree that we.
But the consent decree. Listen, the consent decree said that only 2 cases, maybe 1 case, was founded in years of investigations by the Internal Affairs. One.
But Idell, a civilian review board does not preclude people in law enforcement who are retired with experience.
Yes.
It doesn't preclude them.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So just to shed some light on your statement, Mayor. All that happened before. That was our predecessor. So that was before you got.
So Mayor,
Listen,
Mayor, right direction.
Hold on. So
I don't disagree. We are moving in the right direction.
So Mayor, let me
say we don't need a CCRB. I think we do need one.
Let me ask you a question. Since you've become mayor, have you seen more accountability?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
I don't disagree with that. Listen, but it should not be left up to individuals, proclivity to want to do right and want to do justice. You need it to be systemic to stop people who will come after you, who will come after me, who are not this chief, not the director, not these other people. That's why it has to be systemic. You can't base it on individuals' goodwill, right? So if I'm not the mayor, if somebody else is doing this, you have to have systemic things in place to keep these things in check. Obviously, something is wrong. You see people getting killed all over the damn country. Something is wrong, and it keeps happening. So some oversight needs to happen. Y'all just need to admit that, brother.
Listen,
y'all, you know that is wrong for that man to kill George Floyd like that. You said this guy should not be shot in the back, and criminally they should be challenged. But the city should have a right to separate them people from us. We should have a right to say, because the CCRB can't investigate you criminally.
Right, everything is administrative.
It's not a criminal case.
Everything is administrative.
Right, it's all administrative. The CCRB can't say you got to go to jail. But only thing CCRB could do is punish you administratively, separate you from employment, suspend you, do all these other kind of things. If it's criminal, the prosecutor got to take care of that. But the CCRB gives the community information that it doesn't necessarily have, right? Y'all gotta stop listening to them boys y'all listening to in the cars that you be driving with all the time, man.
Thank you very much.
Hold on.
Mayor, my view is that you can have, I don't necessarily agree with the way it's put out there. Like what we heard in our city was they were gonna have elected officials appoint 9 people, and those 9 people were gonna do this. No, you have trained folks, educated folks who can handle this thing properly. At the same time, and my issue is, I know my job, okay, and I do my job right. But when you're talking a patrolman, you have a patrolman that has a sergeant, that has a lieutenant, that has a captain, that has a deputy chief, that has a chief. Then you have a prosecutor's office overseeing that, and you have an attorney general's office overseeing that. You mean to tell me none of these people are doing their job?
No,
the job is being done at the lowest level. You don't have these issues. So these people got to be held accountable.
I agree.
What's getting done. The reason things aren't getting done on the street properly is because it's not getting pushed down from the top. It gets pushed down by the top. The patrolman will do what he's supposed to do because the chief said to the deputy chief and on down the line. So my issue is, if you're going to do it right. The way it was proposed, absolutely not. Because you hold somebody's livelihood in your hands, and you don't get to pop up one day and says, "Hey, I want to be on the civilian review board, and I think that Idell was wrong, in my opinion." You got the rule of law you have to follow. I don't think it's like all bubblegum like that. I think people are chosen. They have to go through training. Newark CCRB, they go through training.
They get trained in 2C, they get trained in a whole bunch of stuff. So they're just not putting anybody on these boards across the country.
We have to instill in these, especially the younger officers that's coming on, that because you open up your mouth and you speak, you are not a snitch. That you're not a snitch. What you do is you have morals. You're taking the oath seriously. So this notion of
contradiction,
all that, that's
That
BS.
sure is.
On that, because that's a contradiction.
Yeah,
Police officers shouldn't be saying that. It's a contradiction.
well,
When police officers fight the community and say this, they mad because people not snitching, this whole no snitch thing, and then you start talking about snitching inside the police department. It's just a contradiction. And police officers shouldn't be saying that, period. Because it means it's one standard for them, then there's another standard for people in the community. And it's just not, that's just not correct, right?
Further divides.
like I said, Mayor, if you treat, if every officer uphold the oath that they took, we wouldn't be having this discussion around the nation.
Oh, we
right?
human beings.
What we doing in Newark is totally different. We are in reform. We've been, and we can get better. And we definitely moving in the direction to make Newark even better. But like I said, the CCRB, we have them in here and we training them. They learning what the AG guidelines stipulate, the directives from them, and also the 2C. So we embrace the CCRB here in Newark. We're not afraid of it because I know I can sit here live on this here show and say we're doing and moving in the right direction.
I just want to thank all of y'all for giving us their time to be here. It was an incredible discussion, man. I appreciate everybody. We might have to do this regularly, man. This was a lively discussion. I'm sure people got a lot out of it. The residents and everybody else who watched it, they got a lot out of it. We just got a long way to go. And we just thank God that we have officers like you that are in this institution that's flawed. And to admit that there are flaws is big. And now you have to do the job to repair those flaws. Whether we agree on everything or not, we have to agree to work together to change what's happening, because what's happening is just not right. So I appreciate y'all, man. Thank you. Have an incredible Sunday, man.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having me, the youngest in charge.
Uh-oh. Sister.